Hey everybody, Adam Savage, and I am down in LA at Prop Store with Brandon Allinger. Hello, sir.
Hey, Adam.
And this is actually a first for us because we've covered so many aspects of film history on the channel, and we've covered so many aspects of it here at Prop Store. Costumes and props and pieces and vehicles. But one thing we have never covered is the art of the matte painting.
I can't believe you've never done matte painting.
It's ridiculous.
How many videos?
How many dozens and dozens we've shot over the years.
No
and
matte painting.
They are such an important and amazing part of the filmmaking process. And we've got three to talk about today. Tell me about this incredible one. I mean, so many people are recognizing this just looking at it.
This, you can see, it's the Batcave, and it's from Batman Returns. So the second Keaton film, released in 1992, really probably at the tail end of the physical, actual paint on glass or board matte painting era, as opposed to the digital matte paintings that I think came in later in the 90s. But this is an honest-to-goodness, old-fashioned paintbrush on the glass.
On glass. I'm touching it. It's glass on the back here.
Yeah.
Now, tell me what shot this was used for.
So this is the interior of the Batcave, and you can see a few dark spots where I think they matted in live action. Specifically, I think the Batmobile was placed here, which, you know, when I first heard about this piece, I was hoping the Batmobile was going to be painted into it.
Right.
It's not. They did the Batmobile as a composited element. Yeah. But you do have some of the Batcave apparatus, the computers and such, the Bat computers down there that are included in the painting. And I love the staircase going up there.
So there's a couple of things that really blow my mind about this is when this happens in the background of a shot, you just take it in when you're watching a film. You're like, oh, I understand, I'm looking at the back of a large room. One of the things that a matte painter does so well is not put too much detail in. This is not photographic, and when Joey zooms in, when you zoom in, you'll be able to see just how, I love how sort of rough-hewn it is when you get close up.
Right, and if it's almost like if it was too sharp, your eye would go to it instead of away from it, and by leaving it a little bit more vague, it blends more naturally, right?
And I think we do filling in of those details, right, with our own minds, and I think that an average person, if asked to paint the background of a world, if you're doing world building, would be like, I don't even know where to start. And when I look at the close-up of this, I realize that what the matte painters understand is that deep prioritization between the line's gesture and its actual physical form. Like, they are prioritizing for the gesture. And we'll see this in a couple of in the other two matte paintings as well.
Yeah.
It is not overpainted by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, but the scale is big, and that's really what matte paintings is all about, right? It's an economical way to add value to a film where it's like, instead of building a massive Batcave set, we can build a small portion of it and we can paint the rest. So classic Hollywood filmmaking technique going back decades on all the big epics, and of course used very famously on like Star Wars. It all comes back to Star Wars. A lot of great matte paintings in Star Wars. And some great work in Batman Returns.
Oftentimes in a matte painting, especially painted on glass, one of the things that would happen is they would actually clear a part, they would actually leave open some part of this that they would film through the matte painting to bring that action into the foreground.
For an in-camera composite.
For in-camera composites. And our Star Wars matte has a little bit of that going on.
Yes, yeah.
So tell me about the painter of this piece.
So this was done by a matte artist named Bill Mather. It was done at a studio called Matte World, which was up in Northern California. They did a lot of great matte work in the 80s and the 90s. Craig Barron and Chris Evans were some of the principals at Matte World.
I visited Matte World
on
a trip to San Francisco in 1989, and they were doing exterior model shots for Darkman. At the time.
Liam Neeson. Yeah.
All those cranes in the background behind the big villain's office window. They were doing the view outside the office window.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, I mean, sometimes with matte paintings, the content is, you know, a little bit mundane because it's just extending a landscape or something like that. One of the things I love about this, it's the Batcave.
It's the freaking Batcave.
It speaks to Batman and what Batman is. So, yeah, great matte painting. Love the size of it. You know, you're going to need some room to display this one, but if you have a wall to put it up on, it looks pretty cool.
And this is one of those few matte paintings in which you really don't have to guess too hard to know where it's from. You're like, it's the Batcave. It could only ever be the Batcave.
It tells its own story.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Amazing piece. Now, the Batcave did not have cutouts for background elements, but this bit of the Death Star trench from Star Wars does.
Yeah, and this one's really interesting. I mean, we've sort of categorized it as a matte painting. Is it technically a matte painting? I'm not sure. It's almost a flat painting that's part of a three-dimensional model.
It's a forced perspective. This is what's viewed at the end of a large-scale trench shot. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, they had the trench model in 3 dimensions, like a big U. Something
with
has
buildings
to,
out here.
Yeah, and something's got to cap it at the end of it. You know, they only had so much. Maybe they had 50 feet or something.
Yeah.
How do they make it look like it goes on forever? A forced perspective flat painting at the end of it, done by Joe Johnston.
Done by Joe Johnston?
Yes. Yeah, there's actually photos of him painting this exact piece on the workbench.
So just for the uninitiated, Joe Johnston isn't just the director of The Rocketeer and a million other amazing films. He also designed and built Boba Fett's costume, did some painting on the helmet, was an amazing production designer in the Star Wars universe. Was just an amazing all-around, like, umpteen triple threat, right?
Yes,
like, he could paint, he could
draw,
draw, he could storyboard, design and direct. I love the idea. And this is continuing our theme of, this looks like a lot of detail, and when you zoom in, it is blocks of color.
Absolutely. You can see they've actually started with some photographic elements. Like that right there is a black and white photo. I don't know if the whole thing was black and white photo and then painted over, or if there's some photos composited.
Potentially, yeah.
But there are photographic elements underneath the paint. And then you've got some of the reflective tape. So I'm trying to point out an example.
Oh, yeah.
Right here.
Stuff like this?
The 3M Scotchlight stuff that reflects back at the camera.
Oh, wow.
And they use that to decorate the whole trench model and then some on the end of it as well.
So to get these little light kicks. I never noticed
Just to
that.
give it some light. Yeah. And you see it especially in the trench. You don't really see it on the top surface of the Death Star, but when they go down into the trench, you do see quite a bit of that.
And did you say that there's like a picture of Joe Johnston actually painting this?
This exact one, yeah. And they did 3 or 4 of them, I guess, because they didn't want it to seem like they were always in the same part of the trench.
Right.
So they did 3 or 4 sort of slightly different, different V cuts at the top, different perspectives.
Different angles potentially.
Yep. And so, but this one's on his workbench. He's got another one on the ground next to him, and I think it's labeled on the back number 2.
And this is not painted on glass. This is painted on masonite.
Yep. Yeah, this is board, so it's a little bit hardier, a little bit easier to preserve for the future. And I assume, similar to this black sheet that we have behind it here, I assume they had some kind of piece of black something, maybe just a paper with holes in it, serving as
that was their favorite way to do starfields.
Right?
Yeah. I love how rough hewn it is. Again, when you get up close and you realize that, like, honestly, us prop replicators often make stuff so clean it doesn't have any resemblance to the original because no one would waste the amount of time that we are taking to make stuff. And this is just great. I love seeing these photographic elements, and like practically you can see the jigsaw marks of them cutting this out.
Totally. I also just love, it tells the story of how much work goes into visual effects and how much work went into effects at that time. It's like, well, not only do we need to build a 3-dimensional trench model, at some point somebody goes like, well, what's at the end of it? And it's like, what is at the end of it? And then you've got to plan that. Somebody's got to sit down and paint this. It's just everything that winds up on screen had to be created physically in that era. You know?
And this kind of forced perspective treatment has its roots in theater from hundreds and potentially thousands of years ago. This is a totally wonderful and much used technique in theater.
Oh, like for painted backdrops?
Or opening a door and seeing a room behind and creating the illusion of space.
Interesting. That makes sense. I hadn't thought about that.
Dude, we have one more matte painting to go, and this one is going to light the millennials up. All right, Brandon. Every millennial in the world is going to know what this is, but tell me what it is.
This is from the summer of 1996, Independence Day. This is the mothership. This is the craft that Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith flew up in the captured alien fighter and went in to plant the computer virus back when computer viruses were a big idea in 1996 that took down all the alien ships in the network and saved the universe. Are you telling me that you don't watch this movie every July 4th?
I don't watch this movie. I saw Independence Day when it came out, and I have never watched it since. And it's not because I think it's terrible. It just didn't land with me the same way.
I think it's a very fun, watchable movie. It's a very defensible. Love Independence Day.
Well, I love this painting. First of all, I walked up and I thought it was on its side. Because these look like the spires of buildings.
It's funny you say that because when we photographed it, it was photographed upright at first. Right. And then we had to go look at the movie and go, no, it goes down on its side.
However, looking at these large antenna structures, there is actually a lineage between the Independence Day spaceship and some of the classic ILM spaceships. I'm thinking of the mothership from Close Encounters and the mothership from E.T. Both have like this kind of extended antenna equipment structure going on. And
Totally.
they're hearkening to that here.
I could see that. Even sort of Nostromo-esque as well.
And I love how much work they're asking this matte painting to do. They're creating an entire environment. Was the shot composited that you actually see them go in here?
I think so, yeah. I don't know if you see them go all the way in. I think you at least see them approaching it.
Right.
Maybe the ship is just on the kind of background here, the more open background. You know, sometimes with matte paintings, it's fascinating to go look at the final compared to the actual artwork, because frequently they don't use the whole artwork. They only wind up using a small bit of it.
Right.
And sometimes they composite in other elements. So like beyond that model, they might have had some other foreground element that was just giving it depth and perspective and such. So sometimes it's actually hard to spot the matte painting within the film. But this one is in there specifically, this exact shot. It's on board. It's another one on board. And you can see
it's on masonite or on
someone's put the board on the frame. Oh, actually, look at this. I didn't realize. It's filled with fiber optics.
Oh, here, I got a flashlight. Can we, Oh, yeah, I've got the thing here. Here we go. Oh, this is going to be cool. There's a fiber optic trunk here.
Let's see.
And I'm going to light it up. And oh! Dude.
Very cool. Look at that.
Now, I mean, you might be asking yourself, why wouldn't they just build a digital version? Again, what date did this come out?
96.
96. There was not really computers doing this. Yes, Jurassic Park came out before this, but it's still a very expensive process. This is the old school technique. This is how they knew how to do it.
Look at that. It looks good like that. We need to get a photo like that for the auction catalog.
You totally, totally do. I love that the fiber optics, this is just embedded in wood.
Yeah.
Coming back to a single trunk, and they could put any color they want through here.
If someone was to display this in their home, they could set it up with a little light set, a little LED rig on the back, and
oh man,
nice light on the living room wall.
And again, just like the other two matte paintings we covered here, when you get in close, these big light bars are just, it's like two brush strokes of a couple of colors of white and light blue. There's nothing that complex going on.
Super simple. Yeah, yeah. This one I know was done by Chris Evans. Chris Evans was...
Not Captain America.
Not Captain America, different Chris Evans. He goes back to Industrial Light and Magic. He was a matte painter on things like Return of the Jedi. And he may have even done, you know, the very famous matte painting of all the stormtroopers on the...
all lined up in
where
Vader's
there's one
ship.
that supposedly has a smiley face hidden on his helmet.
You can't do work that tedious without adding a joke.
You got to.
That's great.
Yeah. He may have done that one. So he did a lot of great mattes at ILM, and then moving on to Matte World, you know, things like Willow and just other big ILM projects of the 80s that he was involved with.
Well, and this is about the most mature this technology got. And I love the fact that this and the Batcave both painted at about the same scale. This is painted at a scale in order to properly fill the camera frame with enough detail, not too much, for expense reasons, but just enough detail to tell the story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, you know, again, this one being on board, it's a little bit less delicate than a glass painting. Yeah. Easier to handle, easier to preserve for the future.
Over the years, do you get matte paintings frequently, or are they a rare item?
Actually, they are pretty rare, you know. It's, I think, especially the glass ones.
Right. Especially matte paintings of iconic moments that you can recognize from films must be pretty darn rare.
I mean, unfortunately, there's some sad stories about glass matte paintings that existed and then just got shattered in storage or in transit and that sort of thing. We have had a couple of nice batches. We did have some great matte paintings from Blade Runner in the past. I think we have one from Ghostbusters in this auction. It's just some of the buildings that appear behind Stay Puft, but cool to have another matte painting. In the prior auction, we had one from the first Michael Keaton Batman, which was like a Gotham City painting. Yeah. This time we have the Batcave. So they don't come up that often, especially from the big movies. You know, sometimes you see more obscure ones from commercials, from television, but to have multiple paintings from multiple big fan favorite titles, it's an unusual offering for sure.
And this is one of those special effects technologies that feels more, I guess, accessible to me than most others. It is really straightforward. We need to expose an environment onto a camera. We could make it full size, we could make a model, or we could paint
it flat.
and then put some models in front, and you're never going to notice the difference.
Yeah, a little smoke maybe.
Oh, yeah,
for atmosphere.
literally smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, yeah. It's worth noting we also have in this auction a couple of different scales of the attacker model. So the actual model that they fly in, we don't have that size, but we have a 2-foot and we have a 4-foot attacker model, which I think are great ships, great models as well.
That's amazing. Brandon, thank you so much for introducing us to this, because it's such a cool technology and it yields such incredible results.